Okay, hello. This is another episode of Open Letter to Ordinary Human Beings podcast, and I'm here with my fraternity brother Scott Jones, who at the time had no idea, uh, maybe not consciously, maybe subconsciously at some level, he knew when we were in college how much he was helping me when I really needed to socialize and get a social life to kind of help process some of the trauma that I'd been through as a little kid and all the shit that I saw growing up. And Scott was very cool. And had he not advocated for me to become a member of Sigma Phi Epsilon social fraternity at Henderson State University, uh, I would have been much less of a social human being than I am now. And I may not have developed the social skills I needed to become a civil servant for the city of Dallas and become a police officer for 18 years, who honorably retired after uh, I decided that my wife and I were going to make a go of it in Southern California. And we spent 7 years living in Hollywood, uh, trying to write for any TV show that would have us. And all that socialization and skill and confidence, a lot of it I can go back and thank Scott. So publicly right now, Scott, I would like to thank you for helping someone when I
Mm.
really needed it. I
Well, sure. I
appreciate
didn't
that.
realize I was helping that much, but okay.
You did. You helped
Yeah.
a lot.
Mhm.
And you introduced me to your dad. And
Mhm.
I remember you told me, I think your dad probably met me when I was going through a young hippie phase, and now I'm going through an old hippie phase. And I think he told you, yeah, people like that never amount to anything, which, which, which I thought. Now, I'm not knocking your old man. I
I don't
respectfully
recall him
because,
saying that, but okay.
yeah, he did. He said that, and I was so impressed with him. I remember he was dating, I think, Jan's SpaceX cousin for a while. I don't know how that ever panned out.
Sissy Spacek's cousin, yeah,
It's
for a
Sissy
while.
SpaceX cousin.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
didn't pan out too well. Anyway, that's
yeah.
another story. Yeah. Hmm.
But anyway, man, it's been a minute, and I think life is pretty good for you. And the one thing I wanted to ask in particular regarding fathers was, I know you have taught for a long time, and I'm kind of surprised that you haven't gone into coaching a little bit, or have you, and I just don't know about it.
Um, you know, there have been several people who have brought that up. I like a lot of coaches, of course my father got out of it when he was 39, 40 even. Um, there's two reasons basically that I didn't go into it, and that is that I saw the emotional ups and downs, the highest highs and the lowest lows, and I did not want to ride that roller coaster. Okay. And then that was a huge reason because I'm not made that way to have a lot of ups and downs. I'd rather be more steady. Um, the other reason is, he was. I don't know if you knew this, but he was inducted before he passed into the East Texas Coaches Hall of Honor, and I always felt that if I did coach, that everybody would always compare me to him, no matter what I did. And I was not him, and I was not mini him necessarily. Yes, we had some characteristics that were similar, but we also had some differences, which, to be quite frank with, sometimes he didn't quite understand. You know.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So if you were to coach, back on the coaching thing, um, do you see anything like I know this is going to sound like a silly question because you may not even have
Hmm.
seen this show, so let me back up a little bit. Have you
Hmm.
ever seen Ted Lasso?
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. Hmm.
Okay, that kind of quashes that whole line of question there. Do you have like Apple TV Plus, one of your streaming subscriptions?
No, in fact, we're cutting
Okay,
back on streaming.
okay.
Hmm.
Um, well, I'm assuming though, I know you read the book Friday Night Lights.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, all right. No, I was just wondering because I was always imagining, I was wondering if you ever did get into coaching and you were to start out, if there were a particular phase of the game, like special teams, defense, offense, that would interest you if you had any theories or mindset about it.
I never really thought about it. I just never really wanted to coach, and in some ways, my father didn't understand that I wasn't mini him. You know,
Yeah.
just I just did. You know, he was telling me, "Well, it's in your blood," but I really didn't. I
Yeah.
wasn't like him at all in
No,
that
if you
way.
didn't have the fire, if you didn't have the fire for it, that's cool. What did you play when you played?
Well, of course, I played for a small school, but I went both ways. I was a linebacker and an end, yeah. But yeah, you know, but that's water under the bridge too. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So, and I didn't play for him my senior year. I should note that, and that was probably my
Yeah.
best year in athletics because I felt like I'd relax, and I'd grown up some, but I felt like I could relax and play some because I always felt like there was that pressure on me because he was hard on me, uh,
Yeah.
and which was a good thing because you know, if your father is the coach, you didn't want anybody saying, you know, any favors or anything like that. Well, obviously nobody wanted to take my shoes. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Well, I'm wondering since the you were kind of maybe had this I have this kind of as I'm processing what I went through, and I had my psychotic break in November 2024, and I'm kind of the stardust is instead settling inside my skull. I've kind of had this universal theory kind of about the human experience, and I think it starts when we're born. I think we're all
Hmm.
kind of born like as feral psychopaths because we don't know anything but pain. I mean, we just know. I have no idea if we're ready to be born when we're born, or if it's just a shock, or if it varies from person to person. If some little entity is thinking, I can't wait to get out of here, even though they don't know what the next thing is, who knows? Then I think when we hit around age 8, some of us learn to reason abstractly that, oh, there is a world outside myself. And I don't know that everybody makes it through that. Uh, I think it's kind of taken for granted that we learn to reason abstractly, but the older I get, the less I think that's true. And then I think in adolescence, right when we're getting ready to start high school or after we've started it, we need to make a very important decision. And that decision is, am I going to really apply myself and go to college or not? And I think a lot of people who see that it's bullshit and start skipping school and that it's stupid, they may be onto something. And if they're really talented and they find, what they can pursue, a lot of artists, they drop out, they do their art and they're brilliant. But very, very few people can do that.
Hmm.
And then I think the next thing is the quarter life crisis, which is a big deal where you really decide what you want to do with your career and how do I really want to make money. And that's what I want to talk to you about, your quarter life crisis, because I think your quarter life crisis, Scott, is what brought you back because you were a little older and you already had a business degree and you came back to pursue another degree when I knew you
Hmm.
at Henderson State,
Right.
in the early to mid 80s. So could you
Hmm.
talk about that a little bit? What motivated you to come back and kind of resolve, if I've even properly characterized it as a quarter life crisis?
Well, um, what happened was I was born to be a teacher. Okay. I think it's something you're born with. There's an art to teaching, that you're either born with or you're not. And I call it the it factor.
Did your dad teach too?
Yes, until he, of course, until he went into selling, you know.
Okay.
Uh,
What
but
did he teach?
history. Hmm.
Okay, cool.
And, but I mean, and of course, my mother was a teacher until she had, some things. But anyway, um, as far as me though, of course, I was raised. Let me say this: I was raised by my father alone from the age of 10 or 11 up. Okay, before it was even cool.
Yeah.
But as far as me coming back, um, I think everything happens for a reason and a purpose. And I'd always worked. I'd always where I worked at the steel mill, worked in concrete, worked in delivering pizza, whatever I could do. I've always been a worker. And
Mhm.
so um, I had a business degree, to be honest, because um, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Okay, and so I felt like that would benefit me or anybody else to know something about business. Okay,
Logical.
yeah, and so I I finished with the degree, and I went out in the work world, and like most people who are Gen Jones, I don't know if you know what that is. That's what I am, Generation Jones, which is the tail end of the baby boomers, 55 to 64. Um, the economy wasn't so good like the baby boomers. The leading edge had it. And there was a lot of recessions in the early 80s. There was a lot of recessions. And I kept getting laid off, and the business world was just not on the up and up. I didn't feel, and there was a lot of cutthroat stuff going, and that was totally against what I uh, really wanted to do. But then on the other hand, I was hearing from uh, some people who were burnout teachers. Those are the wrong people to listen to. That had it with the system, and to an extent, I understand that. But the last thing a teacher wants to hear is everything bad. A person going into teaching, and so I naturally went away from that. And so I was actually working, and one day, and I said, I've been laid off from two jobs because of the economy, and I felt like I was underemployed. Well, I was underemployed for what I'd studied, and a
Mhm.
lot of people I think were in that boat during that time period. And I I didn't know myself, and I actually took, and you're probably familiar with it, the Strong Campbell Interest Inventory, and it said I need to be a teacher. Yeah, more specifically, a special ed teacher, because I've always been the nurturing kind, and a teacher, period, and the helper. I've got to be helping people, whatever I do. And that's important that you get a career, I think, that aligns with your values, who you are, you know. And so I didn't really see a way that I could go back. I knew I wanted to, and I was very, very fortunate because I had a great aunt who lived in Arkansas who never had any kids. That she didn't have a lot. She didn't have a lot of money, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But she helped me when I needed help, and I'll never forget that. You
Yeah,
never forget
no, it's what
help
would we
people.
do without people like that?
Yeah, and
No,
so
I
she
totally get what you
so she paid for my when I went back, and basically, of course, I had that work study too,
said.
but
Yeah,
and I know business is certainly probably more academically taxing than some of the education classes. Although I felt more at home in the education classes, I felt like I was one of them. I got it, I understood it. And so I felt like I'd come home. And I think those 2 years I grew a lot, and from 23 to 25. And I think that was one of the happiest times for me because I was growing socially, academically, and I was really getting my life together. And so um, that's how I ended up going into education.
Well, let me ask you a bit about, I can't remember exactly when it was you had pledged. You had already pledged the first time you were there and you
Hmm.
got your business degree, right? So
Yes.
when you came back, you knew you were coming back home to SIG-Eps also.
Yes.
I don't know how much of a part that played, but for me, I was talking to my wife the other day
Hmm.
and I told her like the last, oh, I don't know, 2.5 years I was an undergraduate, that every Thursday night I would dance and I can't dance, but I needed that, man.
Yeah.
I needed that socialization, you know, it meant a lot to me.
Well, we were fortunate that when we went through, of course, fraternities on the local level change over time, but a lot of our fraternity brothers, um, I would say most, okay, were really good guys, and most have
Yeah,
been very successful. Okay. And they did value academics, and I saw that, and I think you saw that.
yeah.
The reason why
I
we
know
had
Barry
the
did. I
day on campus.
Barry, yeah, I saw Barry a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
We visited here in Rotterdam, so that was very cool.
Yeah,
He
they
always
didn't.
say crack a book.
Yeah, they didn't take academics lightly, and
Yeah.
that to me was important. Um, you got to have the social element, but you've got to have the other two. And I
Well,
think,
I always wanted to recruit guys that would help our GPA too, like
yeah,
Alan Pinkerton and Mark Stewart. And I think I tried to rush Tony Lyons, but I don't think he joined us. But he was
yeah,
really
he did.
sharp, dude. He did?
Yeah, he did.
Okay. I couldn't
But
remember.
Mark Trout and I are friends to this day.
Mark Trout's a great human being, as far as I'm concerned. And he
Eh,
he knows he
yes.
knows the journalism teacher that I had in high school, and I wish that I would have sometimes followed my first impulse to get a journalism degree because that's what I really wanted to do, and that's what we're
Mhm.
doing right now, basically. It's
Mhm.
journalism. That was my
Yeah.
first love, but it's
My
dead.
wife and I,
Journalism, as we knew, it's dead now.
yeah, my wife and I bought a vacation house in Russellville, and so we had to have insurance. Well, Mark Trout was working for State Farm in Magnolia because it had to be in Arkansas, so it couldn't be in
Yeah,
Texas. And so I went through Mark to get the insurance, and
that's cool.
great guy. He's
Yeah,
I think the world of Mark, and smart,
yeah,
and he's been through some things in his life as we all do. But
yeah,
he's a sharp guy. Yeah.
yeah. I remember too, and it's amazing when I went back, there was one fraternity brother, I can't remember his name, but he had been through some shit before I became a police officer, or maybe after, I can't remember. But he had been a, a guard at a federal prison and wound up, I guess, having to shoot a guy that was trying to escape or go over the wall or something.
Mm,
I don't know the full details of that story, but I think
mm,
it kind of messed him up, and I think he quit. He quit after that.
mm,
Was looking for something else to do.
yeah.
But some of the guys, man, and then I guess you know about Branquizio, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Know all about
Yeah,
that. The
yeah,
war and all. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. But no, it's some fascinating stuff the way stuff shook out. So um, so you went back and you got your teaching certification. Uh, so what kind of you found yourself in a groove teaching, and I think you continued your education after that, right? Did you go ahead
Yeah.
and get a master's?
Yes, I did. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm at SFA. I'm a certified principal in Arkansas and Texas. hmm I've never really, well, I did use it in Texas because I was an administrative designee on a couple occasions, but yeah, but I never really have used that so much. But I enjoyed the classes and I enjoyed going through it.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So are you still teaching now?
Yes, I'm teaching at the Trinity School of Texas, which is an Episcopal school, which is where I started. Not there, but I started an Episcopal
Yeah.
school in Dallas, and I was a retiree hire for the last 3 years at Ore City ISD, middle school and high school. Um, I'm more than likely I'm looking at a couple of well, I am. I mean, there's probably going to be a good chance that next year I'm going to be back in public school, and it's probably going to be in Southwest Arkansas somewhere. So I've increased my certifications by challenging some tests, which I surprisingly passed.
Oh,
My wife
wow.
said, "Yeah, no surprise at that." But yeah, now I'm certified in Arkansas, for example. I'm certified speech 6 through 12, special ed K through 4, special ed 5 through 12, social studies 7 through 12, social studies 4 through 8, math 4 through 8, science 4 through 8, biology in high school, environmental science. Uh, anyway, I've got lots of certifications. I mean, I look good on paper. That doesn't mean I'm a good teacher, but yeah,
Well, I mean, the
yeah.
thing is that
Mm,
you've always had, Scott,
yeah.
that you can't fake is that when you talk to people and you answer, people can see the wheels turning a little bit because you're not so quick just to judge and to just snap like that, which is good. I mean, I think that's an important quality just for to interact with anyone. So I'm a little stunned though that you're thinking about Southwest Arkansas because that's kind of, that's obviously where we went to college, for a while, and that's where I went to high school. So are
I can
you
relate to the
you
culture there.
feel
It's a lot like East Texas.
okay? Is there any particular place you have in mind, or you don't want to
Well,
jinx it,
I
or
mean, I've
what?
applied for several good, what I consider to be good schools, and I've got a couple of interviews. So, I just, having retired from Texas, I'm really, really, um, yeah, I mean, I want a paycheck, but I'm not as apt to go north for the extra money. I want to get into a situation where I feel like the district is more in accordance with my values and probably a little less stressful than some of the larger districts, maybe.
Now, is Mark Trout, is he? You said he's in Magnolia. Is he teaching there now?
Well, he was. I want to understand he was at teaching at Southern Arkansas, and but he's retired, and he was working for State Farm, but he still
Oh,
lives
that's
there.
right. That's right. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. Well, man, look, I just wanted to catch up here and see what was how things were shaking out with you in what I consider to be very weird times. I'm worried about a lot of my friends back in America.
I'm fine.
But you're not worried.
No, because the Constitution, everybody's worried about this and worried about that, and
Yeah.
the president is never the issue really, because the Constitution here and the people, or not even the people who support certain presidents. You remember Barack Obama was president, and the Republicans were scared that he was going to go for another term. Well, he can't do that, and now the Republicans are scared Trump. I mean, the Democrats are scared Trump's going to go for it. Well, he can't do that, and my opinion is strictly my opinion. Uh, I think we put too much stock in who the president is and not enough in Congress. They
Mm,
have no term
mm.
limits. Nothing can be funded without them.
Yeah. I
And they're
think
not
term
going to vote
limits is a big
themselves
deal.
any kind of, they're not going to
Yeah.
vote themselves any kind of
Yeah.
uh, term limits. They stay
Yeah.
up there forever. And to
Yeah.
me, I see Congress in my opinion now, as a bigger problem in our country than who the president is. The media would
So
disagree.
if you could come up with a constitutional amendment, it would be regarding term limits, I would
Yes,
imagine.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm for term
I'll tell
limits.
you mine. My idea for a constitutional amendment for the United States would be something we have in the Netherlands. Although I would suggest to do it half as frequently as they do in the Netherlands. I think there ought to be a serious push for a living wage amendment in which the minimum hourly wage, was calculated, and that if an adult, and we define an adult as being 18 or older, were
Hmm.
working full time, that they could be right at the poverty line. Because, and within the Constitution saying you review this minimum wage once per year, constitutional. In the Netherlands, they review it every 6 months. Doesn't mean they change it. Sometimes they go 2, 3 years without changing. But to me, when the minimum wage was first introduced in 1938, a
Hmm.
lot of conservative politicians said, "Oh, that's communism," and they railed against it. But it
Yeah.
became the law. It became something that other democracies in the world followed. So, what do you think about that? A
Well,
living
that's a
wage
good
amendment?
question. In the states, we each state can set their own minimum wage, and it has to be above what
I
the
don't think
federal.
that's true, Scott.
That
I
is
think
true. Arkansas has a different minimum wage.
there's a federal minimum wage,
There
and
is,
then
and it
but different
cannot be below
municipalities
that.
can vary that.
And it
Yeah,
cannot be below that.
right,
But like
right.
Arkansas's minimum wage now is much higher than Texas, much
Yeah.
higher.
And I remember when we left
Yeah,
Los Angeles, if you were in Los Angeles County, I think,
yeah,
or it was either the county or the city, the minimum wage when we left in 2018 was $20 an hour.
yeah. Well, let me give you something to think. Of course, the economy out there is a little different, but let me give you something to think about from that perspective with my business background, because the United States is different because we're capitalists. We're not
Yeah,
pure
well,
capitalists, obviously,
so's
but we're
Western
more
Europe and
capitalist
most of the world.
than any other place. So let me say this, okay? So what's going to happen if you raise the federal minimum wage is that, okay, we've raised it now to $20 an hour. Good. Instead of working 40 hours a week, you're just going to work 20.
No, that is specious logic and totally an erroneous comparison.
Because
That's not what.
the business people are going to say, we're not paying it. We're not paying it. And just to this day, they want to employ people 40 hours because they don't want to have to provide insurance.
That needs to change too. That's
Mm-hmm.
corrupt,
And
and
so
they're exploiting it.
I'm not
Yeah,
saying whether it's right or wrong. I'm just saying this is the
it is
reality
wrong.
we
It's
live in.
morally
Both of
wrong.
those are in the reality we live in. So the
Yeah.
businesses are going to say, we're just going to work you for 20 hours instead of 40. So what have you accomplished?
Well, what you're talking about there, number one, the mindset goes back to um, something that's pretty simple. And the thing about the United States of America when they started, their fragile concept of what democracy was, is they were saying the value of a human being supersedes any superstition you may have. Okay, you have a right to freedom to believe whatever, but the people who founded the country were deists,
Yeah.
meaning that they believe, yeah, okay, God existed, but after that, man has free will.
But here's the
And that
thing,
was a
too.
huge,
Mm-hmm.
leap in the progress of mankind to get away from this notion of royalty, which is absurd. And it's
Right.
an affront to every ordinary human being to say another person is superior to you just because of the accident of their birth. That's what
If
the
you look at
founding
our
fathers
history,
rejected.
if you look at our history, though, uh, in the 1700s, when America first came to be, we were not all that capitalistic. We were just developing into capitalism. It actually came to pass in the 1800s, if you look at the history, which I find fascinating. But
Yeah,
mhm.
I don't think that's true either. I think the profit motive has been around longer than that, longer than the 18th century.
I'm not saying the profit motive wasn't around. What I'm saying is we weren't as capitalistic because capitalism hadn't really developed yet as the economy. It was developing. And so, you know, people were like, pure capitalism or whatever. We couldn't decide. And we really were not as, we weren't socialistic, but we really weren't capitalistic so much because we were really a developing economy. It was a strange world. Somebody said one time, you know, how would you like to go back in time and live in history? And I said, I wouldn't. And they said, why not? I said,
Yeah,
because
I wouldn't either.
you're walking around with a bunch of short, ignorant people,
Yeah.
you know? I
Yeah,
mean,
and a lot more
mm,
savage too. I tend to believe the notion, I'm agnostic, but I do have faith in human beings. I really do.
yeah.
When I say I'm a man of faith, I mean it
Okay.
because you know I believe in this kind of abstract concept of doubt in the scientific method, and that things get better over time because I depend on, I have faith in the kindness of strangers. If I pull a fire alarm someplace, I expect the fire department wherever I am to show up. Uh, and that's a relatively recent phenomenon. You
Yeah.
know,
There's a lot
and
of
I
good
believe
people in
in
the world.
yeah,
You
I
don't see
believe
them
in
in the
Martin
media,
Luther
but there's more
King's
good people than there are bad people. I
yeah,
believe
I
that.
believe that too. And
Mhm.
Martin Luther King's notion that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. So, it's just it's tough for me because the quality of life over here, when we first moved over here, the first thing I noticed that the cost of living was half. It was half of what it was in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is very expensive.
Sure, it is.
And the people who helped us out, we were trying to get on our feet. There was a very kind landlord in Utrecht, which is one of the big four cities in the Netherlands, who let us stay in a place dirt cheap for like 18 months until we could kind of get on our feet. And life has been good. I've got because of my age, because I'm older than 55, uh, right on my 56th birthday, we found a beautiful little flat with a riverside view. And, life is good. Uh, but we were both working full time in Los Angeles when we left.
Mm.
And um, neither one of us wanted to pay any taxes in America that we had to extra to support a president that, we both thought was a fascist. And we just wanted to get out. And we did. And I'm so lucky because my wife's a native Italian. And
Okay.
The
Yeah.
European Union, I think, has been
Mm.
one of the most underappreciated um, political achievements of the 20th century. We've reaped enormous benefits from it. And I have a friend who's from Birmingham, from England,
Hmm.
who lives in Tulsa now. He's a great guy, very good writer,
Yeah.
good screenwriter, and he just hasn't broken through after like me, after 30 years of writing. He's always just knocking on the door. But he said, and he's also lived in New Zealand, and he's a pretty cool dude. And he said, he tells friends, the ones who can understand it, because I told him we're both immigrants. I'm an immigrant to Europe, and he's an immigrant to America. And I think now he's actually an American citizen.
Yeah.
But he said, if life were a video game, life in uh, Europe would be set on easy, and life in America would be set on hard. And I said, yeah, that's a really good analogy, and that's why I brought up the whole thing about the cost of living amendment, because I think it's absurd when any politician names any fixed number. That fixed number means nothing because numbers change.
Sure.
unless there's a system
We
put
can
in
do stats any
place.
way we want to. I
Yeah,
can manipulate
is
any data
unless there's a
for
unless
my
there's a
benefit.
fixed number in place for
Hmm.
some kind of review, it doesn't mean anything
Right.
because I don't know what it would take right now for the typical American working full time to hit the poverty line. I don't
Well,
know.
and I think that depends on where they live.
Well, but it
Hmm.
shouldn't. It should just be for the federal purposes, just flatten it out to make it as simple as possible. And the one thing we discussed it earlier that I would concede about that to make a
Hmm.
concession to businesses and
Hmm.
kids who work in high school jobs is say, okay, like Reagan had the idea of, let's do a wage for kids that, aren't 18 yet. And that would be my concession to businesses. Like, okay, you would employ kids, yeah, but still, the whole thing on the living wage, I think the time has come for it to be a constitutional amendment because
Well, it
it's
goes
it's a
back to
real it's a
what I
real
just
thing
said
for
in
ordinary
America,
people.
and I understand what you're saying, but that's never going to
Mhm.
pass. And the reason why is because what you're describing is it has to do with federalism because we leave a lot of things up to the states. And I don't think they're going to make a constitutional amendment dictating that, uh, especially as the inflation changes. And we're business friendly, as you know. And I just I hear what you're saying, but again, the businesses here are just going to cut back the hours that people are working. You know.
Yeah, unless they couldn't, I mean, it would have to. What would have to happen is there would have to be government would have to invest in it. It wouldn't
Well,
just
yeah,
be
because and then it would have to be
100%.
government because
It
it
would
would have to
have
be
it would have to be a
Keynesian.
mix. It would have to be from private
Mhm.
enterprise and the
It would have to be
government.
Keynesian economics, but it's not. That's not. Uh, it's just not. It's not because we came from a
The
Puritan
thing
age.
is, the thing is, what's going to blow everyone's mind is it may come to a point with AI that what keeps people from starving or murdering each other in the streets or both
Mhm.
is some form of universal basic income.
All right, let me ask you a question.
You know,
We've got TANF, we've got WIC. Don't those ensure that? And I know WIC is one of the best programs we've got. I know that for a fact from people who have been on it and have used it. Uh, and I know that all our military is required to go on TANF and WIC, if they have kids. So, is this not giving them adequate? I
I
don't
don't
know.
know that everyone's eligible for that. I mean, you're talking about a
Yeah.
population that obviously, whatever entitlement
Mm-hmm.
someone who is in the military, they've earned it. They deserve that, including, the GI Bill,
Well, I think they need a higher
all of it.
wage in the military, but that's my opinion.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
uh,
But it's it's going to come to the point where so many jobs are just eliminated by AI and whatever that a real conversation globally, not just in the United States, but globally, is going to have to
oh
occur
yeah.
with universal income. It's just going to have to happen, and
Well,
I think it's going to be a hybrid. I think it's going to be you'll get some of your income from the government and some of it from work, just because
and where's the government
you
get their
don't want
money?
a constant state of warfare and revolution.
And where's the government get their money?
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to have to be a
Business
higher tax
taxes.
rate.
And if
Yeah.
businesses are not making as much because of all the regulations, they'll just go out of business. And then you hurt the economy because nobody works and nobody gets anything.
You
So there'll
Well,
be the
beyond that, the
to your
last
point.
topic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
last topic. And I'll cut you loose, man. I so much appreciate
yeah,
this, and I so much appreciate your
yeah.
patience. Um, from the get-go, because I was a police officer for 18 years in Dallas, Texas, just an ordinary patrolman, beat cop, first responder. The first time I heard anything about the blockchain or digital currency or Bitcoin, the first thing I thought was counterfeiting. That's a felony. And in all those years since that I've heard about digital
Mhm.
currency and all that bullshit, I'm still think if it's not counterfeiting, it's a Ponzi scheme. So do you know anything about digital currencies, and would you care to educate me with your business degree?
No, I don't know anything about digital currencies, and I don't accept it as currency. And I think it's all like you do. I don't. I don't
Okay.
think. I
That's
don't.
a relief to
I
hear,
agree with you.
actually.
Yeah, I don't believe it.
Okay.
Mm.
No, I think it's counterfeiting.
Yeah.
I think it's counterfeiting at worst, and only slightly worse than that. I think it's a Ponzi scheme.
Well, there's a reason. There's a reason why our Fed prints money at the rates they do. It's a complicated formula, and the goal is for there never to be another Great Depression. And so, where everybody runs on the bank is always able to survive because of that. Because banks are, as you know, are privately owned but publicly owned.
Yeah, like it's a wonderful life scenario.
Yeah, so but they're publicly controlled. So, and the feds are there for a reason. And I think when you start this digital currency stuff, you're basically saying we don't have much faith in the Fed formula.
Well, it's a way to
And
hide
we do
money
have
from the
faith in it.
government too. It's a way to
Hmm.
avoid taxes.
Yeah,
It's a
sure it
way
is.
to launder money.
And I just don't. I don't do digital currency. And but a lot of people. I mean, there's not a lot, but some do. And I just it's just not my thing. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I think it's a great if you were a Russian oligarch or if you were a dope dealer at a high level and you were looking for a way to avoid taxes and secretly move money, it would be great for you. Or if you wanted to start your own currency and have people pay you under the table without leaving a
Right.
trail, it would be a great way to do it. I
Hmm.
think it's the fanciest tool for corruption that exists now, to get billions for nothing. But
Yeah.
anyway, man, that's it. I think that was a
All
good
right.
one to sum up on, and it was a real relief to hear that you don't dig digital currencies either. So tell Steph I said hi, and
Okay.
it was great talking to you. And take care.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Talk to you later. Bye.